Alright, in this video I'm going to upgrade the computer in the Fiero to the 7730. It's a much better, faster computer, and I just can't say enough about it from the research I've done. And I think it's a project that a lot more Fiero owners should consider. Now, I've never done this upgrade before, so if you're watching this video, I have successfully done it, and I will share that knowledge with you. So first, let's take a look at some of the parts that you're going to need in order to do this upgrade, and then we'll check out the car, the way it runs before and then after. I will say, if you've seen any of my other YouTube videos, this car was upgraded to the 3.4 liter pushrod from the 95 Camaro. So I'm going to add a distributorless ignition system to it, and some of the components for this computer upgrade, as well as the distributorless ignition system, are already set up on the car. If you're using a 2.8 liter, you're going to have to modify for a crankshaft position sensor, knock sensor, and kind of work those details out in the block. So I'll have it a little easier in some aspects with this 3.4, but let's go ahead and check out some of the things we'll need in order to do this install. Alright, I've gathered together pretty much everything that you'll need in order to do this swap. Starting from the very top right corner, we've got the ECM, which is the 7730 or 1227730 ECM. This one happens to come from a 1991 Chevy Beretta, 3.1 liter. Above that ECM is the PROM sitting on a FedEx box. The PROM was just programmed and sent back to me, so it should be compatible with the Fiero setup. Now, directly next to the ECM on the left are the ECM connectors with a little bit of a pigtail. I have on blue tape written down where each wire needs to go in the Fiero and what it is. This should help me get this a little quicker and a little more efficiently now that I've taken the time to repin it with the wiring harness pigtail and then mark where each one goes on the Fiero as well as what it does. And then just to the left of that and above it we have the electronic EGR, and to the left of that is the wiring harness for the EGR that I will have to splice together into the Fiero. And above the EGR is a wire repinning tool. Definitely recommend it. It's about $15–20 bucks, but it will save you a whole lot of headaches in pulling pins and repinning between the new ECM connector and the existing wires in the Fiero. Now to the top far left we have the EGR adapter that will adapt the Fiero exhaust to the electronic EGR. This was actually made by the Georgia Fiero Club, thank you very much by the way, and it's going to really make this process a whole lot easier as I am not a machinist. I think I paid about $55 and it included all the gaskets and 2 bolts, so I highly recommend it if you're going to do this swap to visit the Georgia Fiero Club and pick one up. To the center we have the knock sensor, which in my 3.4 liter block all I have to do is screw it in. There's already a place for it. If you're using a 2.8 liter block you will have to find a way to mount this as it is needed. I believe you can use a freeze plug, a slot, there may be a boss in there somewhere that you might be able to tap this into. I haven't done a whole lot of research on the 2.8 block conversion as I'm not doing that yet, but maybe down in the future we'll look into that a little bit more. One thing to remember though with the knock sensor is you have to get the knock sensor from the same style car that you got the ECM from, as there's a direct connection between what the knock sensor puts out and what the computer reads. So make sure you get a knock sensor from the car that you pulled the ECM from. Moving on to the left of that, we've got the crankshaft position sensor. Again, in the 3.4 block, I have a space for that, and I'm actually replacing the one that's in the block with the existing, or with the new one, just to make sure that I have one that works well, and I'm there, I might as well do it. If you're using a 2.8 liter engine, I believe you can actually use one of the freeze plugs for this. And for both the knock sensor and the crankshaft position sensor, you want to make sure that you get the connectors for them, usually from a salvage yard of some type. With the knock sensor, you can actually cut and take the temp fan switch connector, since we probably won't be using that, and reuse that as they are the same connector. Alright, moving down to the bottom right, you see I've got coil packs from a 95 Camaro. They came with the engine that I bought and installed in the Fiero, so I'm merely going to attempt to put them back on the engine. Just to the left of that, I have the distributor delete, which I will use to plug the hole from the distributor when I actually pull the distributor out. And then finally, to the left of that is some wire loom cover, and then just below that in the black is some shrink wrap, and then below that is just a few examples of some automotive grade wiring you'll need for the engine compartment to run the new wires for your electronic EGR, your crankshaft position sensor, and your knock sensor. So make sure you get some quality grade automotive wiring, as the engine compartment does get a little bit warm. So this is a good summary of pretty much what you'll need. I think I spent $35 on the ECM. The coil packs came with the engine. The EGR I paid $15 for, and then the crankshaft position sensor I think was about $30, and then the knock sensor I think was like $20 or $25. And like I said earlier, the EGR adapter plate was about $55. So you can do the math and find out about how much it costs. It's not a very expensive conversion, but the benefits, from what I understand, are definitely worth the $200 to possibly $300 you'd invest in doing the upgrade. Like I said, the coil packs are optional. You can remain with the distributor and save yourself a little bit of costs and headache. In my case, I am going to attempt to put them back in. So let's move on to the next step. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at how the engine sounds now, how it starts up, how it runs, just to get an idea of before and after. May or may not be a huge difference, but I want to be one to find out. So let's give it a whirl. Got my key, and let's do it. Close the door a little bit. Yes, this is a work in progress, but this is my touchscreen navigation DVD system. The faceplate's still work in progress, but it's coming along alright. Anyway, going back to the engine, I got the door closed a little bit. Tachometer is a little off. It's been like that. I've replaced the tach filter. It helped a little bit, but it didn't get it quite down to where it is. It is definitely not idling at 1900 RPMs. So, but one other issue I'd like to resolve is I was never able to get my temperature coolant sensor hooked up because I couldn't get the plug out of the block. So I am going to, in this swap, also remove the temperature fan switch, and I'm going to put in the temperature sensor in that slot in a pre-test. I found the threads are the same, and hopefully that'll get my temperature gauge working. Anyway, aside from a slight little belt squeak there, let's take a look at the engine on the outside. Alright, so here, as you can see, it's the 3.4 liter with distributor. Runs and idles pretty well. No complaints, but I still like to make it better if better is possible. First step, if you're nobody but me, is to remove the bike rack, because I like mountain biking. Second step, if you're nobody but me, is to clean out the front of your car. I've got my mountain biking bag with parts and tools, jumper cables, my actual tool bag in case I break down somewhere. I've got an emergency pack or first aid kit, and you know, a little quart of oil or whatever buried in there as well, just in case. But in my case, the battery's in the front, so all this has to come out so I can disconnect the battery and start the process. Alright, step one for everybody: disconnect your battery. In my case, like I said, the battery's in the front. Done. Alright, now on this side of the engine, the front side on the block, this is where the crankshaft position sensor and the knock sensor are going to mount. Since I'll be using a car with an automatic transmission, it's going to be tough to reach in there to get to those spots, as well as the exhaust manifolds in the way and the cross member and the K-frame. So what I'm going to do is attempt to jack up the car and drop down the exhaust system to make it a little easier to access, both for my own sanity's sake, as well as to see if I can get a camera through there so you can see what I'm doing. So alright, now I've dropped the exhaust. Basically all I did was loosen the joint right after the catalytic converter, undone the supports for the tailpipe, and it just swung down. So let's go in and see what we can see. Oh, and I also had to disconnect the e-brake. Alright, as you can see through, well, here's where the muffler was. Zooming in, you can see there is the knock sensor for the Camaro. Now, as I mentioned before, the knock sensor is not compatible with the Beretta computer, so I've got to change that out. So now that I've dropped the muffler out, it should be a much easier to reach and trying to pull that out. Alright, so I've loosened the knock sensor for the Camaro. It was a 7/8 wrench. Just for effect here, put it on there like so. Get it loose. There you have it. Knock sensors out. Location wise, you can see it's right here, right under the exhaust. One of the bosses. So if you're looking for the location of it, or you're looking to put one in, that's the location. And there we have the new knock sensor installed. Alright, And if you're doing a distributorless ignition system, that right there sticking out just above the oil pan is the crankshaft position sensor. This one in particular looks a little chewed up, which is why I got a new one. So we're going to change that out and replace it new, and then we're going to start running wires to this sensor as well as the knock sensor. Alright, well here's the old crankshaft position sensor. It actually turned out to be a little bit of a pain to get out because you have one bolt you have to take out, and then you're supposed to pry up and pull it out. Well, it ended up coming apart on me, and I had to get some locking pliers and yank it out, but yeah, got that out. This one just reseated in, take the bolt, put it back in. Like I said, it's right above the oil pan in the block. Alright, now we're going to run some wires from the computer over to the sensors and other things. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and removed the center console, I've removed the computer and even the computer tray. Now we're going to drill a hole so we have a way to run the wires, and then I'm going to run the wires from here over to where the sensors are and then cut them here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill a hole into one of these rubber plugs from the firewall. And to do that, I'm going to use, I'm kind of guessing at this, but I'm going to use a 1/4 inch drill bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And that was very easy. I may end up having to make the hole bigger, but see how it goes. Alright, I pulled the knock sensor wire out to the bottom. Got the connector plus pigtail. I'm going to slip shrink wrap over it, get it ready, splice this one up. Resin on it. Alright, and like I said, if you have any soldering skill whatsoever, you got more soldering skill than I do. So now we'll just go ahead and cover this up. And shrink wrap it. Knock sensor actually goes directly to the electronic EGR connector, and then from the EGR it goes to in through the firewall. So I'm gonna have to splice this in. I've got these marked. The EGR gets hooked to the brown wire here, and then the green wire here goes in through the firewall and hooks to the ECM. The red wire goes to your temperature fan switch to turn your fan on and off. So you're actually going to not use your fan switch. Alright, so now I'm going to take the temperature fan switch wire. The temperature fan switch is located right behind in your thermostat housing. In my case, I had to replace the connector years back, so I am just going to tap into that. So I'm just gonna give myself a little extra slack. And then we're gonna run this all the way over to the EGR. Alright, now that we've gotten the wires run, I pulled them down a little bit. I'm waiting to do the knock sensor. So basically we're going to just strip out the wire just a little bit, and here's where your soldering skills will come in handy. Just do a quick dip in some resin. And yes, my soldering skills are terrible. So we're going to try and mesh the wires together best we can. Alright, and there you have it. If you have any type of soldering skill, then you have more skill than I do. Just remember to put a shrink wrap tube on, slide it up. We'll get a heat gun and shrink it together, tape them up, and then we'll connect this up. So now I've got this wire connected. This goes to the coil pack. It has 2 wires but 3 ports. You've got a yellow wire and a purple wire, and they go directly to the crankshaft position sensor. The yellow wire is the crankshaft position sensor high, and this is the low wire, and this goes right in here on the coil pack. Alright, so now I got the ignition coil wire disconnected, wire cut and spliced. We're going to start with this next far connector. This is going to be the coil positive and negative. So we're going to take the pink wire and connect it to the pink. Alright, so we got the pink wire connected to the pink wire for the ignition coil wire. The black wire we're going to connect to ground. I'm not really working with much here. Probably should have gotten another connector, but I'll try and work with this one for now. So now I'm going to continue removing the module, or the ignition coil, and the distributor, and because we're going to need more of the wires from the ignition module to wire up this coil pack. Alright, so now I've got the distributor and ignition coil removed. I'm going to go ahead and just plug it right now. So I've got our plug. Stick that down in there. Spin it to get it into the grooves. Alright, got that down. Now we're going to go ahead and secure it. And it's a 13mm. Alright, skip down to 15mm. Alright, since we're in the process of taking things out, we're just going to go ahead and remove the EGR. Real simple actually, just pull your hose. And then it's a 13mm wrench to remove the EGR itself. Alright, I'm going to take a straight blade and just quickly get off any residue or leftover gasket material. Get carbon buildup. So now we'll lay new gasket down. This is the plate from Georgia Fiero. Stick that down. Take the nuts. $13mm again. Snug it down pretty good. Now we'll take our new gasket and we'll sit it on there. Take our electronic EGR with the single point sitting that way. Sit it on there. Line up the holes. Perfect. And with the screws or the bolts that came with the Georgia Fiero, for me it's 12mm. Once we get it. So there we have it. It's all mounted up. Just have to remove the old hose. Alright, now I'm going to take this connector that was from the ignition module. I'm going to systematically cut off the wires and splice them in. This first wire, which is pin A, is black with a red stripe. And I'm going to splice that into connector F, which is originally red with a black stripe. And let's splice those two together. Alright, so I've got the red wire, black stripe, connector F connected to the purple wire, black stripe. Now I'm going to move on to the next one, which was connector E, which is purple with a white stripe, but in my case it's green. And I am going to take the purple with white stripe connector pin C. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to take what's left of the tack filter wire, and we're going to splice that to connector C, which is normally white, but in my case it's yellow. So this is part of your tack filter. We'll no longer use the tack filter, so I've already removed that. And that is a white wire, I guess. At least maybe it used to be. And we're going to go ahead and solder connector C to the tack filter wire. So the tack wire is done. Next we're going to take the other white wire, again in my case yellow, which is pin B on the ignition coil wire, or coil pack wire. And we're going to take the last white wire, which is D, on this connector. Alright, and we're gonna solder these two together. Alright, so I've gotten that connected up. We got one last connector, or one last wire for each connector, and they actually pair up. It is a on your coil pack wire, it is a tan with a black stripe, in my case black, and it's actually the same color on this, which is connector or wire B, which is tan with a black stripe. So we're going to go ahead and cut the last wire. That gets this connector out of the car. And we'll go ahead and splice these two together. Alright, so now we got the 5-pin coil pack connector wired up to the car. You can go ahead and either plug it in or set it aside. In my case, I just plug it in. It goes right next to the wires that go to the crankshaft position sensor. And there's only one wire left, which is the ground wire for the power wire to the coil packs. And I'll do all the grounds at the end. I'll string them all together and ground them all to the block of the car. So I'm ready to move on. Alright, now I'm going to work my way back into the car and start the repinning process. First up, we're going to just go ahead and remove the ECM. Just two connectors. Alright, and we'll get that out of the way. Here are the connectors we're going to work with. And then what I'm going to attempt to do is to systematically go through the Fiero connector, taking the pins out in order and then repinning them to the 7730 connectors, and hopefully that'll work out easy for us. As you can see with the tags, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I did do a trial run on marking what each wire is supposed to be. So hopefully that will reduce my error rate. Alright, first off, I'd like to say it'd probably be wise to get a wire clip pinning tool. Usually 15-20 bucks. It'll make the process a lot easier and well worth its money. First off, with the first pin or first clips, we're going to go ahead and remove the plastic clips, which I've already loosened on these. And basically what you can do is take a flathead screwdriver or on this, just work the hooks out as such, and back side. Once those are removed, you should be able to push one of these fittings through. I believe it's one of the smaller ones, and should be able to pop the wires out. Alright, first I'm going to start with the small clip out of the two. We're going to go with the top corner. This will be known as A1. It's a dark green wire with a white stripe. This is the fuel pump wire. So we're going to remove that. Alright. So green wire, white stripe, fuel pump. And we're going to take the small black connector. And same thing, it'll be on this connector, it will be A11 is the position. So last one. Alright, so take that out. click it back in, just like that. So now we've started the process. Alright, now we're going to move on to A4. A2 and 3 are blank. A4 is the EGR control. So again, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to release the pin. We're going to release A4, gray with a red stripe. It is an EGR control wire. We're going to do the same for the green connector, where it's going to get hooked into, which will be F9. And just so you know, they are labeled, in this case, E and F. So we count over 9, and I have 16 and 1. So you count from 1 to 9. In this case, it happens to be the same color, gray with a red stripe. Take that out. We will double check. So we'll count. Start where it says 1 on the F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, now we're going to work on A5, which is the service engine soon light. It is brown with a white stripe, and it is going to the green connector. Pin number E7. Alright, so now we're going to move the A6 wire from the connector we're working on. That would be the ignition wire. It is pink with a black stripe. We will pull that out of A6, and that will go on to the smaller black connector where we hook the EGR. Now we're going to connect it to the connector that we hooked the EGR up to. On this connector, it will be A6 as well. So we'll pull that wire out. We'll count in 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A6. Alright. So you got that one connected. Going back to the connector, we're going to go to A7, which is tan with a black stripe. And this is the shift lamp control, and this will actually go to F6 on the green. So we'll go ahead and work on that one and move it from A7 to the green pin on F6, which does correlate with the flag that I had created for it. So just to double check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slide it in its spot. Alright, now we're going to move on to the next wire, which is A8. It's an orange wire. This is serial data. So we're going to pull that out. It is going to go to A9 on the black connector, which I have marked and confirmed it is correct as A9. So we are going to pull that out, and we are going to count. Since this is serial data, we're going to have to adjust our ALDO cable. We're going to take the orange wire from that remember to pull the white tabs, and there we are. And that's going to go from pin E to pin M, which you have a black wire with a white stripe, and it's going to go right across from that. And that would be pin M. So we can slide these back in. And the ALDL connector can be reconnected. We're going to move on to the next one, which is A9. It is a white wire with a black stripe. It is a diagnostics enabled wire. So we will remove that. And that will go to the green connector, pin E12. So flip this over. Pull that out. Going back to our original connector, we are at A9, which is brown. This is a VSS signal from the Fiero speedometer, and this will be deleted. And since this is the first time I'm doing this, since we are deleting A9 for the speedometer, I am just going to mark it, saying what it was, where it came from, and that it is deleted. And once I confirm the car runs, I'll go ahead and snip this if need be. If not, at least I've marked it and I can tuck it out of the way. Alright, now we're going to move on to A11. This is a tan wire, or light brown. This is the intake air temperature sensor. So we're going to remove that. And it's going to go to the green connector on pin 16. So we've got the last one on F16. So it should be pretty easy, no need to really count it, just make sure it's on the side that says 16. Alright, now we're going to get to the last wire on this row for this connector. It is A12. On mine it is a solid black wire, but it could also be a black wire with a white stripe. And this is going to move from A12 to the black connector of A12 as well. So on mine, I've got it confirmed as the ECM ground. So we'll remove that. It's the last wire. So you don't have to really count it. Alright, so working on the second row of our original Fiero connector, we are on B1. It's an orange wire. This wire is the constant battery power for the ECM. And this will be moved to B1 on the new connector. I've confirmed its location, and we'll click it in. Alright, so now we're going to move on to B3. It is a black wire with a red stripe. This is the distributor reference low ground wire. We will pull that. and that will actually be the first wire we connect to the large black connector, and it will go to D9, which I have referenced right here. So that will go right in its place. Alright, now we're going to go to B4 on the original Fiero harness. B4 is a white wire, and that is for the electronic spark timing control. So we'll pull that out. It goes on the big connector under C8. So we'll take that Alright, now we're going back to our Fiero connector. This is B5. It is purple with a white stripe. It is the distributor reference signal wire, and this comes from B5 and is moved to D8, which is on the big connector. I'll take that out. Alright, two more connectors on our Fiero connector. We've got a light blue for B8. This is the AC request signal from the HVAC control, and that will be moved to C9, which is on the big connector. Alright, so now we're going to go to B8. It's a light blue wire. It's for the AC request signal from the HVAC control. It is going to move to C9 on the long black connector. So we'll remove that. We'll go to our big connector here. And it is C9. There we go. Heard the click. We're in solid. Awesome. Alright, so now we're on the last connector for the Fiero. At least on this connector. Let's try again. Alright, so now we're on the last wire for this connector on the Fiero. It is orange with a black stripe. It is the park neutral signal for the automatic transmission. We're going to remove that and move it to D16 on the big black connector. So we go ahead and do that. We can go ahead and get rid of this or save it for another repinning project. And we're going to take this over to D16, which is the last one, and we're going to connect it there. Heard the click and we're set. Now we're going to move on to repinning the big connector for the Fiero. Alright, first one on our connector list will be C2. C1 is blank. It is a dark blue wire. This is the AC relay control. We will be removing that wire and moving it. Start fishing these through to the green connector, and we are going to put it on F1. So I've got my spot here, and F1 has clicked. Move on to the next wire. Alright, next on the Fiero connector is C3, which is a green, light green wire with black stripe. It is the IAC B low, and we'll pull that. Alright, and that wire is going to go to the green connector on E6, which I have marked here. Alright, now we're going to go to C4, not the explosives. It is a light green wire, but it has a white stripe, and that goes to the IAC B high, which is pin E5 on the green clip. So pull that out. There we have it. We'll move on to the next one. Alright, now we're going for C5. It is a light blue wire with a white stripe as an IACA high. We're going to pull that wire. There we are. And there we have it. Alright, now we're going to pull C6. It is a light blue wire with a black stripe. It is the IACA low, and that is going to go to E4 on the green connector. So we'll go ahead and pull that wire. There we have it. Alright, now we're going to jump a bit. We just did C6. Now we're going to grab C10. It is a yellow wire, and this is the coolant temperature signal. This one is going to get moved to E16 on the green connector. 16 is the very end. There we have it. Alright, now we're going to move on to C11. It is also light green, and we're going to take that. It's the map sensor signal wire, and that is going to go to the green connector, and it will be connected to F15, which is right here. There we have it. Alright, moving on to C12. It is another light green wire, and this is another map sensor signal wire. We're going to pull that, and the C12 light green map sensor wire will be deleted. So I'm going to mark it with what it is, its location, and that it's being deleted until I confirm that everything works okay. Now we can move on to C13. Next up is C13. It's a dark blue wire. It is the TPS signal, and that is going to go to the green connector on F13. So we'll go ahead and pull that. Clips right in. Boom, done. Going back to our main Fiero connector. Next in line is C14. It is a gray wire, and that will be that is a 5-volt reference wire, which will be connected to the A4 connector, which is the small black one. So we're going to go ahead and pull that. We got it. Alright, next on the list, a little bit of controversy here. C15. Now my list says the wire is supposed to be blue, but my car has it green. Looking ahead at D14, 15, and 16, you probably won't be able to see it on camera. My wire is green, but the row behind it, or below it, I've got green, blue, blue on the harness, but the list says it should be green, green, blue. So I don't know which wire I'm supposed to take. I will stick with the pin under the assumption that even though the color's wrong, the pin should still do the same. And I will come back and double check that, but in case maybe you can see it, we got green, blue, blue on the row below, and then on this top row I've got green and orange, and it's supposed to be blue then orange. So we'll go in order and see how it works on startup, and if it doesn't, this will probably be one of the first things I double check. That said, C15 in this case will be a green. This is injection B control, and we're going to move it to the black C connector, which would be this guy. And we're going to go to C11 right here. Alright, so now we're going to move on to C16, which is an orange wire. It is a constant battery.
Hi, Dad.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. What you doing?
I'm just showing people how to move wires around in a car to fix a computer stuff. You know, it's big boy stuff. It's kind of tough for someone like you to understand.
Is it boring?
It's very boring, and it's just too hard for you to understand. Yeah, so I'm going to show them how to switch these wires, and you know, when you get bored, you can go fall asleep somewhere.
That ain't happening.
Alright, so now we're going to take the wire from the orange wire from C16, and we're going to move it to the new connector at D16.
No, Dad, it's C16.
No, it's D16.
No, it's C16.
I think I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for the past 2 hours.
It's C16.
It's D. I know how to read the papers. You can barely write your name.
It's C16, Dad.
Do you even know the alphabet? Do you know what C looks like?
Yes.
Show me. That looks like an F. Alright, it's D16.
It's C16.
Alright, I owe you an ice cream if it's C16. Let's see. Alright, let's see. C16 orange wire, constant battery, 12 volt power. Move to. Alright, it's C16. I owe you an ice cream. Alright, so. Alright, I made one little mistake. And you got it fixed for me. Alright, so I was wrong. C16 on the original connector actually goes to C16 on the new connector. How strange is that it goes straight over? So we will pull that out and click in the new one. Alright, so now we're going to go to the final row of the connector. D1 is a black wire with a white stripe. It is the ECM ground, and we're going to move that one to D1 on the black connector right here. So we'll pull that one out, get to D1, pop that wire out, and replace it with that one. Alright, now move on to D5. We're going to skip a few. Alright, now we're going to skip a few slots, and we're going to move to D5, which is a tan wire with a black stripe. It is a bypass wire, and we're going to pull that, and that will be relocated to C7 on the black connector. I've got the wire pre-marked, so we will pull this over, pull that out. There we go. C7's been relocated. Alright, now we're going to move on to D6. It's a tan wire. It is the O2 sensor ground, and that will be located to E15 on the green clip. So we'll pull that, and it will go to our green clip. Alright, so now we're going to go to the next pin, which is D7 on our original Fiero clip. It is a purple wire, and this is the O2 sensor signal, and this is going to be moved to the green connector on E14. So we're going to pull that, run that around, there we go, heard that clip, there we go. Alright, moving on to the next clip is D8. It's a dark green wire. This is the EGR diagnostic switch, and we are going to move that to E8 on the green clip. Pull that out, go back to our green clip, left, pull that out. Clicked in the first time. Alright, and we're set. Alright, moving down the line. Next wire is D12 on the Fiero clip. It is a black wire, and this is the TPS ground. And this will be moved to B5 on the small black connector. So go ahead and pull that. There we have it. Okay, now we're at D13. It is a black wire with an orange stripe. May look a little red. This is the matte ground, and this will be moved right next to the one we just did. So this is going to go on the small black connector on pin B6. So pull that. Go. That's that one. Okay, back to our Fiero clip. Next is a green wire. This is the injector A control wire. This is going to be moved to the big black connector, and it will go to pin C12. Click. Alright, home stretch. Next is pin D15 on the Fiero clip. It is a green wire according to my information, but in my car it is a blue wire. That gets deleted, so we'll mark that for deletion. And the same goes for the next clip, which is blue, D16, also gets deleted. And that does it for that clip. Alright, now that we've used up all the pins from both connectors, I've disconnected the harness here. We're going to splice some wires into these connectors. This is connector C203 and 202. If you were to flip these over, you're not going to be able to see them on camera because they're really light. But they use letters. One connector goes from A to H, the other one goes from J to R. So we're going to tap into some of these for some of the other wires we're going to need. First on the list is terminal R, which is this connector, and the directions say that it is a purple wire. In my case, it is purple with a white stripe. And we are going to splice in the wire for connector B, or the black connector, and pin B9, which I've already pulled aside. We're going to splice this wire into this wire. This is for the VSS low. Alright, now we're going to go to pin B10 on our black connector. This will be, on mine, it's a purple wire with a white stripe. This is going to go to the VSS high, which is on terminal G, which is the other connector. Terminal G is a yellow wire. We're going to do the same thing and splice that in. Alright, the next few steps I actually did off camera. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough extension cords to run a soldering iron as well as my lights for the camera, so I ended up doing it off camera. But what I did is we were hooking up the EGR wires. First one was EGR solenoid 1, which was E9 on the green clip. That would be this side, right here. Now on the EGR solenoid, it was light blue. I had to make my own pin, so I used gray with a red stripe. But the wire that connects the two I ran was green. But like I said, on the EGR solenoid, it is a light blue. And so I soldered the connections together. I will heat shrink them momentarily. So that is for EGR solenoid 1. EGR solenoid 2, on the solenoid the wire is brown. I created my own pin, but it is also on the green connector, and it goes to F4. So I did the wire running between the two in yellow. So like I said, on the EGR solenoid the wire is brown. I created a pin for F4 on the connector, and then my intermediate wire between the two is yellow, and I will heat shrink that as well. And then for the EGR3, I ran a red wire because on the EGR solenoid it is a red wire. And that actually goes to the green connector as well in terminal 5, so right next to the brown one. So EGR solenoid red, my wire is red, goes to pin F5 on the green connector. So I will heat shrink all these tubes and we will move on to the next steps. Alright, now we're going to do a little more splicing. Back to the green clip. This will be pin E13, and this is the fuel pump circuit voltage signal wire, and that is going to be spliced into a tan wire with a white stripe on the C203 clip. It'll actually be terminal L, about the third one in, this guy right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to splice the two together. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and tap this in, or splice this in. Alright, going back into the engine compartment, I have unplugged the connector from the EGR solenoid. We're going to take pin C, which is this guy right here, second one in. It's a dark green wire. And we're going to cut that, and we're going to wire this wire to the temperature fan switch. I've cut the temperature fan switch and spliced in a little extra. I could have put green. I don't know why I didn't. Wasn't thinking. But we're going to splice the two together. So I will go ahead and cut that. And you can see there's a C on the connector. So we will cut that. And we will go ahead Alright, I'm going to go ahead and solder that up. Alright, and there you have it. As you can see, I've soldered the two together. As I mentioned, this is the fan temperature switch wire that turns the fan on and off. And this is the EGR solenoid. And I've married the two together with a piece of red wire. So I will go ahead and shrink wrap this on and continue on. Alright, so in the car, I connect the green connector on F4 to EGR solenoid 2, which is the brown wire. On this connector, for the EGR solenoid, it's this brown wire. You do have two, so one, you may have to pop the cap off this and double check which one you're going to be doing. On the side here you'll see BD A, so they're listed, so you have to pop the cap off to identify which one's which. In this case, I've already marked it by splicing it, and this will go to the green connector on F4. In the car I have it run as yellow, so I will splice these two together. Alright, so here, as you can see, I've soldered the two together, and I will cover it up shrink wrap tube, and we're good. Alright, in the car we connected the A4 pin, which was a gray wire with a red stripe, to the green connector on pin F9. This was the EGR control wire. Now that wire we're going to connect to the knock sensor in the engine compartment. This connector was connected to the EGR solenoid, and we are going to go for terminal B, which is this wire right here. It's dirty, but it's gray with a red stripe. We're going to cut that and splice that into the knock sensor. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we'll untwist that. Alright, we're going to solder these two together. Alright, so I've got everything spliced together, or should I say soldered together. Got my insulation on. All I gotta do is heat wrap it and off we go. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to run all the ground wires. I've already run them to the engine block, and on the engine block you can ground them in numerous places. So we've got the last grounding connections here, which are the big black clip, and these are pins D6 and D7, and they are basically injector ground wires, and I'm going to go ahead and solder these together. Alright, now we're going to run a ignition switchable power wire to the solenoid 3 wire, which is pin D. So I'm going to go ahead and solder these wires together, and that should complete the installation for the EGR solenoid. So go ahead and do that. Alright, there we have it. I soldered that up. Just pull our sleeve over it, and then shrink wrap that, and EGR should be set to go. Alright, now we're going to remove the EGR solenoid, since we removed the vacuum controlled EGR. So we don't need this anymore, so we're going to get it out of the way and cleaning up the engine compartment a little bit. I'm feeling a little weak today, so I brought a helper along. So we will use a 10mm and go ahead. My lovely assistant. Get it. Yep. Good job. High five.
Just to let you know, I am her daughter, Dorothy.
You're adorable. Alright. So now we'll unplug the vacuum lines. And there we have it. This one will pull out from the air box, and then we'll go ahead and plug the hole in the air box, and we should be good. Alright, now that we've removed the vacuum solenoid and the vacuum lines for the EGR, there's also a vacuum line that was removed from the bottom of the throttle body. So we're going to have to plug that with a vacuum plug. We'll go ahead and slide that in. And since we're in the way of plugging, we got to plug the line the vacuum solenoid line from the air box. We'll do that right now. Alright, now we're going to plug the vacuum solenoid line at the air box. Vacuum line's down below it here. Just pull that out. Get a vacuum line plug and just slip it over. Take that out just to clean it up a little bit. Alright, I custom made some ignition coil wires. I mounted the ignition coil pack in the battery box on the side of it, hopefully to somewhat reduce the exposure to the elements. I have to put a cover over it to protect it from the weather, but this is kind of roughed in how I have the ignition system set up, which isn't too bad. We got the EGR on the left, coil packs on the right, and everything's really starting to come together. So we're not too far off from a test start. Alright, so here we are, moment of truth. Test number 1. I guess we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed for good results. Start with the ignition startup. So far so good. Nothing's exploded. It worked! Woo! Wow, that is a lot of difference.